I am talking to Tal Hartuv today. Tal lives in Israel. She survived a Hamas attack in 2010, but rather than me talking about it, um, Tal, can you just explain first of all who you are, what your job is? I know you also work for Yad Vahem, so before we go into the main story, can you give us a small bit of overview on what you do in Yad Vahem?
Yes, for sure. Thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. I think it's crucially important what people like yourself are doing. You know, this is a war on all fronts, right? It's not just military, it's a war against civilization. It's a proper war, and a propaganda war. So your part and your viewers and your readers, any little thing they can do to retweet your show and post it is very important. So at the moment, well, after the barbaric attack of 2010, in which my Christian friend was murdered because they thought she was Jewish, and I myself was stabbed multiple times, I was in physical recovery many years. I mean, I had over 30 broken bones and collapsed lung and 13 machete wounds. So I've been in a very slow physical recovery. And of course, the psychological recovery is still going on. I'm certainly not in the same place I was 13 years ago, but you know, to just lay there so helplessly, gagged and bound, and watching somebody hacked to death before your eyes takes your toll on your soul. So how does that relate to what I'm doing today? Because I still have PTSD, of course, and I didn't want to play the victim. You know what I mean? Like, I got to be honest, Derek. None of my friends came to me and said, "Oh, Tal, look at what they did to you, and your life will amount to nothing," which is exactly what they're telling the Palestinians, right? And they're poor Palestinians. No friends of mine did that. They rather looked and they said, "Listen, let's work together. Let's think about what else you could do. Let's take this step by step, because nobody's life is ideal. So many people suffer." And I understood that to be captured and shackled and gagged in perpetual victimhood is not kind, helpful, moral, or true. And I live, to get to your question finally, I'm sorry, but you know, Israelis were so long-winded. But to get to the point, what I do now, I mean, I'm an artist, but I've always been very interested in the Holocaust. I was attacked when I was a tour guide, and the Holocaust was like the most interesting subject to deal with. So I did some extensive courses at Yad Vashem quite a few years ago, and I qualified to be one of their tour guides and also an educator. And it's down the road from me, so it's good that I can go in. Well, we're going to need another museum at this rate, really, for the developing Holocaust with a little H at the moment, but
Yeah,
we do certainly see some parallels here that are horrendously frightening.
yeah, and this might be the wrong word to use, but the irony is in this as well. Yad Vashem, they honor, it's the rights of rights of the nations, that they honor people who saved Jews during World War II, and some of them are actually from the Middle East as well. I had this discussion yesterday with a Tunisian friend of mine, and he was all but you don't know history. So actually, I do. And one of the Tunisians was also, at least one was also honored by Yad Vashem. So it's not Jew against Muslim. It's just what's happening today. I don't think religion plays too much a part of it in a way, because it's just pure hatred, and that's all what kind of concerns me a small bit. But I know I understand you have PTSD. I mean, God only knows how I would cope with an attack like this. But could you just give us a small idea on how the attack started? I know you were there with an American tourist showing around. So just kind of bring us back to that moment, if you can. I mean, I completely understand.
I will, and I'll do it briefly because it has
Yeah,
a terrible mental toll on me to do all this.
of course.
But before I do that, you're absolutely right with Muslim righteous amongst the nations. There was one from Egypt. There was Muslims from Serbia. And I have to say, in my own experience, it was a Muslim surgeon who saved my life. Okay. And I usually, if I forget to ever say that. And the problem with these attacks, before I go into my own story, is it's I see it as a couple of things. It's a theocratic Islam, you know, when you get messianicism mixed with politics, that's a dangerous recipe for any religion. And also to say that more Muslims have been murdered by Islamic terrorists than any other ethnic group. So we can call out Islam without being an Islamophobe, all right? Now, in the case of what happened to us, when I was just taking a Christian friend for a hike and we were accosted, it happened in the proper state of Israel. It wasn't happening, how do you say, like in any disputed areas in the middle of the day. We were pounced on from behind when we were taking a hike. And I'd managed to like get out a little penknife and stab one in the nuts, which is going to be important. And we were held hostage for half an hour in one of the most beautiful places in Israel. Really surreal, you know, dark, the birds were chirping and the sun was warm on my face and I could smell the pines, and we're being held by two terrorists at knife point. And after half an hour, they find my Israeli ID and they assume that we're both Jewish. And of course, Kristine Luken is Christian. So they tied us with our my shoelaces. They gagged us. They took off my Star of David and they cried out, and this is important, Allahu Akbar, meaning God is great. They didn't actually mention Palestine. And then they started butchering. I played dead and I watched Kristine hacked to death before my eyes because their executioners believed her to be Jewish. And they left, and I managed to somehow, thinking I'm going to die, but I managed to walk over a mile, gag bound, barefoot, with 13 machete wounds, 30 broken bones, you know, just collapsed lung, very, very critically injured. And the police apprehended the terrorist very quickly because of his blood on my sleeve. The rest of me was soaked in blood. And the DNA helped them to arrest them. And we actually have this in an Israeli documentary where you can see the actual footage of the police taking these murderous savages back to the crime scene. And I can actually send that if that's going to be any help to you.
Yeah, just by all means.
I'll be happy to do that. And it says, you know, I translated it into English. The interview with the terrorist is in Arabic. It's in English for you. And he says to him, the Israeli says, why did you choose this place? The terrorist says, we wanted to kill. Kill who? Jews. So the Israeli says, well, what's the reason? And he says, no reason, just Jews. And I want to tell you, this is what is happening all over the world. You said it so right. This is the world's oldest hatred being unleashed at proportions that we have not seen since the Holocaust. And if you rightly said about the righteous amongst the nations, I mean, God bless those people. Yad Vashem honors the righteous. And as a guide there, and as a historian in the Holocaust, I can tell you, let's just take Nazi Germany before there's any occupation. If more Germans had just spoken up in 1933 when the restrictions against Jews were very, you know, comparatively not in full action, if more Germans had said stuff like, you know what, my Jewish friend is allowed in this restaurant. You're not allowed to speak about my Jewish friend like that. This is my neighbor. If Germans had spoken up then in 33, I am 1,000% convinced by what I've read about the Holocaust that we would not have had one. Yeah, and it's important that people speak up.
And I think that's another thing I see being repeated. As you mentioned, 1933, like in May 1933 is when they started burning books as well. I mean, it's a form of boycotts, form of censorship that's happening. Fast forward 90 years, 2023, and we're in the same situation. So yeah. And I think that's why it's important that people do speak out, people like yourself and maybe like me as well. So I know this is going to be an impossible question to answer, but how do you go forward after this? How do you cope? And I think it's very important what you said at the start of the interview, that you're not a victim, you're a survivor. So how do you go on? How does life go on for you going forward?
Well, Well, on a personal level, I still have to take the dogs for a walk. I still have to make sure I got my coffee and cigarettes and food and that kind of thing. So there's a very, very brittle routine, because I'll go out to the little corner shop and it's deathly quiet outside, right? You're just wondering if you're going to hear the siren, or you're looking over your shoulder. Things are super tense here. But life does have to get on as much as possible, which it isn't doing very successfully at the moment, but we're scrambling around. And on a collective level, following this carnage, this pogrom, which is basically a Western media state-sponsored pogrom, the justification that's gone on in the name of journalism since then. But as a people and as an educator at Yad Vashem, when we guide young people, we have to have appropriate age level, right? We can't take a 6-year-old into the model of the gas chambers and speaking out all these atrocities. So there's a skill needed how to tell these young children what happened, and it's leaked out over the years. And I think that what we find ourselves in now is a situation where Israel is so damaged, and I don't just mean military speaking. The nation is in total shock. We're getting our act together, all right? This is the most united we've ever been for probably since the founding of the state. But I was talking about it with some other Yad Vashem guides. It's like, what are we going to tell our children of this generation? What are we going to do with those very few orphans, these little babies, these children? How are we going to tell them what happened to their parents? And in that sense, we're faced with the same situation that the Jewish people were faced with in 1945 at the end of World War II. It's unfathomable. And I'll tell you another thing, because you are a writer of the Holocaust. I was in a Yad Vashem Zoom group, right? It was an emergency group with the guides and other people. We actually have a guide from Yad Vashem, she's hostage in Gaza. And the question was the most unfathomable question that I never thought I would hear in my lifetime. And it's this: should Yad Vashem come up with an official statement that this is whether capital letter or not capital letter, is this a Holocaust? And it's like a tsunami. I'm thinking, I was guiding history up until now, and now I'm talking about the present. Is this really the beginning of another worldwide and collaboration massacre of Jews? And I don't see any hope that it's not. I really don't.
I'm a bit more optimistic than you, I suppose, even though I have warned about this many times. I say, listen, we have to be careful, even with the simple things like boycotts, and from all sides, it doesn't matter. I said, we are slowly walking into a new Holocaust, or whatever you want, whatever name you want to give this genocide. But well, I'm a bit more optimistic. For strange enough, after this attack, I actually have become a bit more optimistic that this might just be this might turn into something more. It may have opened the eyes of some people a small bit more. And I think that's where we should draw our hope from, that it doesn't go further than this, or not to the same extent. So I'm hoping, maybe maybe a bit naive, but I'm hoping it won't get that far. But history has
I don't want to use hyperbole and scare everyone, because we're not talking about gas chambers, all right? Things won't be repeated in the same way. I don't mean it like that.
No, I understand.
I do mean like it's a potential unleashed genocide, or the beginnings of, and the most important thing is that people speak up. And I'm also hopeful like you, all right, because although we've been terrorized and we're still in such shock, I know that when this war is over and goodness does prevail, we cannot lose this war, and we will not lose this war. But when we do win the war and we start rebuilding our villages and kibbutzim, we're gonna repair our souls, and we might be a broken people, but we're going to be a stronger people. We will be a stronger people after all of this. And I tell you why I know this, because I know for myself, all right, what happened to me and the losses that I incurred and the desperation in my most darkest moments. But now when I look back 13 years ago, I feel I'm a better person because of it. I'm not saying it needed to happen, heaven forbid, all right? But I know my priorities. I mean what I say what I mean. I don't take any prisoners. I feel I'm more compassionate. I feel I get enraged quicker when I should. I'm not afraid to take people on, and sometimes you have to take people on. I'm not afraid to hate evil, you know, and so I feel that, and I love kindness. I just want to like sow kindness. And I do believe that my post-traumatic growth, if you have it, that's what's going to happen with my people. We're going to come out stronger and better.
On that note, that's a good one to end up. And as you said, let's be strong in hating evil, but never hate love and all kindness. So thank you very much for this, and hopefully things will come all right again. So, but again, thanks for this interview.
Thank you, Doug. God bless you all.
Same to you.